GM, everybody, how are you?
I think I can speak for everyone when I say I'm amazing.
I love it. I love it so much.
A ray of sunshine,
Speaking
Clayton,
of,
aren't
you're
you?
not Amanda. You are Clayton. It's good
I
to see you
am
again. We haven't
Clayton.
shared a community call for such a long time.
I'm back.
Nice.
I've missed you too, Clayton.
Aw, I'm here to
Cool.
troll.
Well, GM, folks. Oh, and look, Matt's joined us as well. GM Matt, how are you?
Hey y'all, I'm good.
Good, good. Well, let's go over our agenda for the day since we have most of the people here. And we already have 110 listeners, 111. Love it. So, today is a meet the team with Matt. So we're going to learn a bit more about Matt today. But before we do, let's give an across update. And I will start with our data team today. So I will bounce the ball to either Chase or Dylan, whoever gets there first.
Lots of things exciting happening on the data side. We've been getting ready a little bit for internal call that we have today, talking about some things. I think one of the things I'm excited about, so we've talked a bunch of times about kind of some of the data work we've been doing and some of the things that we're able to see. One of the things that's been a continual pain in the ass has been basically, in order to join up all of this data, Dylan has put together this 700 line SQL query. Now I'm allergic to any SQL query over 100 lines, but thanks to Dylan for doing this.
He's art.
Artist, abstract art or something. But it's this amazing query that gets us the output that we're interested in. But the problem was that every time we tried to do some real-time analysis, it took a minute or 2 minutes or 3 minutes in order for those queries to run. It was excruciating. And Dylan has spent kind of the last days working on an improvement, and the speed per query gone from about a minute and a half to 5 seconds. And so I'm feeling super excited and pumped because we can actually do things in real time now rather than waiting around.
It's like transitioning from Windows XP up to a brand new Mac.
So
But
how many
yeah.
how many queries do you do a day that you're going to break even on the amount of time it took you to do that optimization? That's the real data question.
Probably within minutes.
We're data junkies. Now that we've got the capacity and the speed, we're gonna abuse it. It's a bit like once block space becomes available on new chains, apps come in and fill it up and use it. It won't go to waste. So yeah, we get to unlock new things quicker as well, and it's no longer so. Well, I was gonna say burdensome, but you lose your sanity a little bit when you have to do a repetitive task that takes a minute and a half between each sort of interval. So this is definitely going to improve the quality of life of the data team big time, and everybody else around it, because we won't be so angry all the time.
Thank heavens.
What's an example of a query that this helps improve the speed of? Help me understand that.
So you would do something like select all of the bridge transactions where the transfer was originated from an aggregator, and the dates were from January 2023 to July 2023. UETH and USDC were involved in the transfer. So you start stacking up all these filters. And the way that the query was formatted before is we have this data organized in kind of a very responsible way, which is you store things in their respective databases and then you bring them in and join them together. But because of that, that's processing power that needs to happen. And so Dylan made some clever optimizations where this happens pretty close to instantaneously.
Cool. So basically all of the times that Chase goes, I wonder, fill in the blank. It helps with all those.
Well, we have this data call every week, and we usually spend the last 10 minutes just rapid fire asking questions to the data. Rapid fire used to mean we got 1 or 2 questions answered, and I think now we'll get 20 or 30 questions answered. So that's just massive life improvement for us.
That's cool. I like that the data team update this week is that you can do your jobs faster. It's like
Well, that's really fun, right? Like we could tell you the same things. Like we've been, like harping on this story. It's like across is cheaper, across is faster. Okay, both of those things are still true. Now we can like do a bunch of these things and do a bunch of these comparisons and like closer to real time, which is really fun. I just want to like shout out, yeah, Dylan.
Nice. Yes.
Far
Applause.
too kind.
Round of applause for Dylan. I want to take a small risk here at the risk of poking the bear. One of the things that y'all have been constantly looking into or like prioritizing in our pipeline is competitor bridges. And one in particular struck a nerve this week.
Don't bully me into this. You're gonna like get me ranting, and I won't stop for an hour.
I'll cut you off, but I want to invite you with an audience to, I don't know, just
Yeah.
tell us a bit about what you stumbled upon and yeah, I think it's valuable for the audience too to know that we're always adding new competitors to our pipeline, and we don't look at everybody until they start doing a certain amount of volume. And once they do, they catch our attention, and we think about putting their data in our database, basically. And sometimes we discover things.
Yeah. Sometimes we discover some very disturbing things. Yeah, so some of you guys might have heard of Orbiter. They seem to be one of the kind of like useful sort of protocols that are offering transfers over to ZK Sync. So for like anybody who's farming stuff over there or just kind of like interested in checking out what's the latest and greatest, you might have seen that Orbiter supports going from the kind of like normal chains you'd expect, like the ones that Cross currently supports over there. The interesting thing is that they don't actually have any contracts. What they have is EOAs, like externally owned accounts, like literally just a wallet. And what they do is all off chain. They literally send funds from one of their wallets that they own on Ethereum over to one of their wallets that they own on ZK Sync, and same with every other chain. All they're doing is literally doing a transfer, just like you might send $5 to your buddy. They're doing the exact same thing, and yeah, I suppose that comes with a lot of trust assumptions. So just always kind of be, I would say, vigilant and critical of what you read, because while certain things might say that they're decentralized and that they have these sort of sophisticated systems, when you actually look into it, it can be somewhat eye-opening and somewhat scary. So like just be safe out there, because there is quality projects that have taken lots of time to think about the different security aspects of their protocol, like how they can be open and transparent in what they're doing, and the various different trade-offs that come across with that. And then there's others. So just, yeah, it's your money. Like, you work hard for it. Don't let it just kind of like get taken away if something bad ever happens. Yeah, that's kind of what I would have to say about it. Chase?
Yeah, you're just like, so to be clear, they do have like a roadmap where they claim they're going to like work towards some of these contracts and some of this decentralization, and like that's good. But I don't know, like running a bridge without even a contract, or even like trying to build some kind of like minimization assumptions, like, oh, it terrifies me. So it's like you're sending the money and then crossing your fingers that they send you money back.
Listen, bro.
Dylan,
I got you.
Dylan, I have sorry. I have an unrelated question for you. It's about, I think, a regional slang, I think you might call it. So this is an unrelated question, but I've heard you use this term bucket chop before. Maybe you could tell me what that means exactly.
If you've ever seen there's a movie, I think it's called it's called Boiler Room. It's got like Vin Diesel in it, Ben Affleck, and Giovanni Ribisi. You'll know him when you see him. It's all about how these kind of very dubious stock traders all started off basically kind of like Wolf of Wall Street sort of stuff, except just even more just fraudulent sort of scams. And like they brought a load of very high aggressive sales tactic people into a room and tried to sell stuff that really wasn't real companies to unsuspecting sort of people. And that used to be called like a bucket shop on Wall Street, because like you'd get no one who was of like high quality and caliber actually working for them, and it'd be very dubious as to like how long those places would last. That doesn't mean that they didn't do massive amounts of volume and make tons of money in very short periods of time, but like there's only so long you can keep up a con. So yeah, that's all the bucket shop.
Very good. Thank you for that unrelated definition of that term. Appreciate it.
Learning new things every day. Nice, very cool. Well, thank you for that update. That was not as spicy as I was expecting it to be. So round of applause for Dylan. I will go ahead and bounce the ball over to Clayton. Do you want to represent some marketing and comms updates this week?
I suppose I do, although my Slack seems to have crashed. Hold on. What am I supposed to talk about? Prompt me, Britt.
Yeah, let me go see what I can prompt you with. It's funny.
I've actually been having trouble with Slack.
Clayton, what's our best performing tweet in the last 3 weeks? Why?
Definitely a data related one, I would assume.
Yeah,
I'm very unprepared for this.
that's
Hold
okay.
on.
Tell me about Quest platforms.
Well, okay, right. So we're looking into Rabbit Hole and Layer 3 presently. I know that Rabbit Hole, its founder is like tight with Hart and with the team generally. So I think we're leaning in that direction. But yeah, generally evaluating like whether doing a questing project is the right move or not. This has been a recurring kind of conversation about, what kind of traffic are you getting? Is it okay to get it that way? But yeah, we're sort of having a conversation about, do we want to maybe build out a quest that is quite targeted and maybe a bit more expensive per conversion? Or do we want to do kind of a wider net and we're comfortable with, what is more or less like, not bridging activity that represents people wanting to bridge funds, but is more noisy. And yeah, so there's just a little bit of a debate about that. But generally, I think we're trying to explore how we can utilize some of these tools, but also kind of stay in line with the targets of genuine growth and product adoption.
I'd be
That's one
curious
thing.
if anybody listening has a particular recommendation for any of these Quest platforms, if there's any that you as a user really enjoy, or if you think that any of them have led to particularly good luck for any other projects. That would also be a cool thing to hear more about from the community. All right, in other marketing news, are we publishing anything in the near future, Clayton?
Yes, we are publishing something. We're going to put out a longer form write-up with regard to Across's performance with aggregators. So I think, and actually, maybe this is what you were leading me to, Britt. Our best performing tweet, I believe, was the topic of aggregators, and particularly how well Across is doing, although I will confirm that in just a moment, because I am curious. But yeah, so just tomorrow, yes, you were right, Britt. That was exactly what you were doing, isn't it? So our best performing tweet in the last 30 days was about how Across is ranked in the top 2 bridge results 90% of the time in aggregators, right? And the caveat here, which is important, is just that this is referring to bridges and tokens that Across supports, right? Like we're not going to show up in an occasion where we don't support that thing. And but the cool news is like we just have to start supporting those things, which is on the roadmap and not that far out. And the fact is like the tech and the capital efficiency on a level playing field Across is just kicking butt. So we're going to be putting out a longer form write-up about that shortly to kind of talk more about that and get more people excited. I think this is like a very viscerally engaging thing to share. So I would encourage the community to kind of rant about it to whoever will listen, because it's really cool thing to have a product that's this well performing and have it speak for itself, right? And not have to throw a bunch of our attention into like marketing or token game gimmicks, and really focus on building the bridge that Ethereum deserves.
Amen.
Mic drop.
Nice. Okay, cool. Yeah, that was all of my prompting for you. So unless that rang any other bells, I assume that is a wrap on our marketing for this week.
Let me think about this. Yeah, I think. Okay, hold on. I found the list. Nope. I think that does cover it on the marketing for Across right now. Yep.
Okay, cool. Cool. So I will go through a community update real quick then. I think it's about the same as last week. So the two items that seem to be cool areas of discussion in the community are committees and this community integration bounty. So EVM came out swinging and claimed 200,000 ACX in this bounty, followed shortly by the Real Tuna and Sunny, who I believe is also a member of our Chinese community, so that's very cool. So that bounty came and went pretty quick. So I tasked PVM with creating a round 2 that would be that would like reward more people basically for their contributions. And so he has a draft that he's been working on and wants feedback. So if you're interested in doing some bounty work, you should go collaborate with PVM over in governance chat. And hopefully that will lead to some more integrations for Across. And then the second one is committees. So we're meeting weekly to try and figure out what our community essentials committee was going to look like. And we've found the format, created an application process, and tomorrow is the last chance to basically indicate your interest and sign up for an interview. And I'll be doing those interviews starting next Monday in this channel. It'll be an open interview, so whoever, each candidate, if you will come on stage with me and I'll ask them some questions. And the community can listen in and hear from them and drop some questions in the stage chat if they have any to add. And then we will have a vote up on forum to figure out who will be participants in this committee. And then from there, part of their task is to create the proposal to ask for funding and tell the DAO all the things that they're going to accomplish. So yeah, that'll be pretty exciting. Looking forward to doing those interviews. As a reminder for anybody who is looking to get involved in that and hasn't already, we have a channel called Committees. So you can go over there and get involved as well. That's it on the community-facing stuff. Quickly on governance, I think we're still expecting a proposal from the Velodrome team to happen, maybe hopefully this week. And then I think Kevin might be putting his proposal up on Snapshot that just finished on forum last week. It seemed like it had good support, and that would be a proposal to end bribes on Aura and shift over the incentive mechanism to the Across reward locking mechanism. So stay tuned for more details on that on Snapshot for those of you who are voters.
Is this something that we've talked about already with the community? The locking the LP tokens, the reward locking thing?
We have. We've had like a few discussions about it. We had one sort of not impromptu, but it wasn't the actual community call. It was a separate call that we scheduled to discuss it. And that was one of the options that we chatted about briefly. But it's worth maybe going over a little bit more now because it is kind of different. Like this will be the first time that we'll be using that program for a non-bridging token.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a little bit of using this tool for like yeah, as you're exactly right. Like we're going to be using it to excuse me, to effectively incentivize bridge liquidity of the LP token, but it's not actually for the purpose of bridge liquidity. It's just to provide the incentive for people to be LPs, right? So you're going to take the LP token from Balancer and lock it just like you do on the rewards page with any other token. Is it going to have the multiplier, the 3x multiplier 100-day thing associated with it?
It will.
That part's very interesting. And adds a different dynamic than just like, doing an Aura or something like that.
Yeah, I think so. I'm not exactly sure the economics of it, but if we can get people to migrate over there, it seems like it should be more beneficial over time. So that would be cool.
I'm tempted. Yeah. And it's kind of cool, right? And like it also sort of works well since, just being an LP, you always have the risk of an impermanent loss. And this would help make sure the longer that you're in there, the longer you're exposed to that risk, the more compensated you're getting. So that's cool. I like it.
Normally I would bounce the ball finally to Dixie, but I don't know if he'll be joining us today. But it's possible.
I think he's in the audience. But I don't know if he's on stage. I don't know if he wants to talk. But I think I see him in the audience.
Oh, there you are. Dixie. Oh, there you are. Hey, Dix. How are you?
Matt has to say today. I think that's going to be really interesting.
Yeah. Do you wanna give us a quick tech update for the week?
Yeah, I can. So we will have like full speed going on ZK Sync testing next week. There's a big focus on being able to launch ZK Sync in August, which is going to be really cool. It's obviously not something that's been like new chains haven't been added to Across for quite a while, so this will be a big event, and we're just going to work hard to make sure that we can do that in mid-August. And there's obviously still ongoing work on the UBA side, but that's just going to continue. And yeah, we've got eyes really focused on ZK Sync.
Well, thank you for that. Quick and to the point. Yeah. Infinity threw up a nice dancing GIF in the stage chat for you, Dixie. Wonderful. Awesome. Well, with that, let's go ahead and dive into our main guest today. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Brett.
Thanks for coming. Do you mind, for anybody who hasn't met you already, just give us a quick who is Matt?
Yeah, so I've been with Wrist Labs for a long time, maybe 4.5 or 5 years at this point. So most of my working life has been with Wrist Labs. I used to think of myself as kind of a newbie in crypto back in the day, because in 2018 you look around and everybody's like, oh, I've been into Bitcoin since 2011. But now I feel a little bit more like I'm a little more seasoned. But yeah, I'm Matt. I'm the CTO of Wrist Labs, so I work on both Across and UMA. Some weeks much more focused on Across, some weeks much more focused on UMA. But yeah, they're both a lot of fun, and I like kind of the variety of getting to play with both sets of really cool technologies, and also thinking a lot about the intersection of the two and how they kind of relate to each other and support each other and make each other better. So yeah.
Cool. Do you want to share any piece of Matt prior to crypto world? Like, what's your background? How did you get here?
Yeah, sure. Sorry. Yeah, I probably should have mentioned that. Yeah, so before this, I worked. So I guess like I went to school for electrical engineering, and so that's kind of I'm trained in that. But I got out of school and then I worked for a small hedge fund slash kind of HFT firm. Kind of more of a startup. We weren't super successful at that, but it was a lot of fun. I met a lot of smart people there. Ultimately, one of my friends there is kind of how I got led to Risk Labs. Yeah, that was a lot of fun because I moved into kind of high performance development. I kind of learned to program and learned to do kind of very low level, kind of fast programming at the same time. So it was a lot of fun. I did a lot of C++ there. I kind of fell in love with the language. And then, after that, I went and worked at Google for about a year and a half. I really liked some parts of Google, but I thought it was a little bit, I don't know, it can get boring at times working at a kind of a massive tech company because you just feel like kind of a cog in the machine. And coming from a startup, you feel like you don't have a lot of impact. So I started kind of looking for things that I could do to have more impact. I eventually found a crypto side project and worked on that for a little while with some friends, and that I felt like I had a lot more impact, and it felt like there was a lot more to discover there. So I sadly left C++ behind and moved to Risk Labs after that, and started working in crypto full time. And since then, it's been great. I've like I said, I stayed here a lot longer than anywhere else because I really love it, and I kind of feel like I've found my calling. So yeah, I guess that's kind of a brief history of me.
I love it. I was going to ask what your favorite language is, but it sounds like it's C++.
It is. If I could write everything in C++, I would. I recognize that Rust is kind of the new up and comer, and that probably that's the way the world is moving, and that's probably going to be if I ever want to do high performance programming again, I'll probably have to do it in Rust, and that's okay. But what I really like is being able to write code, write low level code, and write code that's really fast, and that you can kind of optimize and kind of think carefully about what the computer's actually doing under the hood, and like what assembly instructions are being compiled in and all that. And so that's part of the reason I really like working in crypto, because you get to work in Solidity, and Solidity is kind of like that. Solidity feels very kind of low level for the EVM. You get to think about exactly what bytecode this is going to compile down to, and you can think really carefully about how much gas you're going to use. The kind of the way you think about performance is a little bit different, but kind of thinking low level is still a big component of writing code in Solidity. So yeah.
Give us a quick spitfire of that's not the right word. That's okay. Of all of the languages that you feel comfortable in.
Well, I mean, I don't know, definitely C++, definitely Solidity. I'd say those. I'm pretty strong at both those. JavaScript for sure. TypeScript. I'm very comfortable in those languages. We do a lot of that sort of work. Other languages I've done a significant amount of work in are like Python. I've done a little bit of Go. I did like MATLAB in school. And like every programmer, I think I've played around in tons of other languages. I've played around in Rust. I've played around in Java. But never done much serious in those languages. I have done some serious work in Python though. So yeah, I'd say pretty comfortable in four, maybe 5 languages, and then beyond that, I've probably played around with others. But I think learning a language gets a lot easier once you work in a few that are once you work in Python C++ and let's say like Java or something, you get comfortable enough with those languages, and most other languages are kind of similar enough to those that that it's not going to be that hard to kind of, you know, pull your mind or twist your mind into reading the new syntax. The only thing I haven't really played that much with is kind of super functional languages like OCaml or Haskell or something. I'm not a big functional programming person, so I don't have as much experience in that sort of thing. That would be pretty fun and weird to try out.
Nice. I love it. Thanks for that. I have a joke from Dixie that I have to read out loud. He said, "Are you bullish on being able to write contracts in C++, and why not?"
Yeah. No, I 100% agree. No, not bullish at all. So Solidity is like JavaScript. It's like the thing we're going to be stuck with forever. No other language has the yeah, I mean, no other language has the like right structure. It's like constrained enough to work the way Solidity does. You'd have to build some super weird version of C++ that like doesn't let you do anything to like make it work in the EVM. And the reason Solidity is great is that like it was built from the ground up, being super constrained and allowing you to do very, very little so that it can work inside the EVM, where like, you know, obviously resources are pretty constrained. So yeah. I mean, maybe somebody will do it. Like I know, like you write, what do you write on Solana? Rust or something. So I'm like, I guess other blockchains have figured out a way to make normal languages work on the blockchain, but like I'm kind of bearish on getting any other language outside of like Solidity and Viper to work in the EVM.
Like a hot
or at
take.
least making them popular.
Nice. Which editor do you use?
Oh, people are gonna hate me for this. I I just use VS Code. I'm like a let the editor do as much for you as possible maxi. I think people who like I mean, I know that there's a lot of people out there who love Vim or Emacs, especially I know a lot of Vim people, and like yeah, like it's so annoying and hard to like configure your Vim to do all the stuff that you just kind of get for free in another editor, that like it's just not worth the time to me. So I much prefer working in a regular editor. And like, yeah, if you prefer Vim key bindings or something, you can normally add that to your editor and just call it a day. So I use VS Code. I used to use Sublime because I liked how simple it was, but ultimately I kind of got forced into using VS Code because it's just so much. It does so much for you.
Cool. I wanted to ask sort of a behind the scenes question, because in addition to sort of like making the products work, both UMA and across, you also kind of oversee our general like operational tech side of things and security, and like you deal with our RPCs and all of that stuff. Which part of your day-to-day job is like the most the most impactful and unseen thing that you do?
That's really hard. You know, like, I mean, honestly, I'd say the thing that I didn't realize when I was early on in my career that's like incredibly important, from like a leadership perspective, is code review. I guess two things: tech culture and code review. So code review is incredibly important because it's like it solves so many problems in our, you know, so many people problems, right? Like it's hard to communicate designs to people and have them really, like, if you have a really complicated thing that you're trying to build, and you know there's a new person on the team and they're tasked with part of this, and they don't quite, you know, they think they might understand it but they don't quite get it. Like code reviews are a really great way to like help them get there, but still having them do the work and kind of, you know, get their hands dirty. and kind of get them up to speed in a really kind of immersive way instead of just explaining to them how the system is supposed to work. And so like that plus like, you know, making us all kind of write code the same way and kind of communicating with other developers about ideas and concepts. Like I think code review is probably one of the things that is the most important part of my job and kind of in general tech leadership. Like that's one of the most important parts of tech leadership that like most people outside of tech don't really think about. And I think a lot of even developers don't really think about the importance of code review. So that's like one of the things that I think is incredibly important and sometimes I think gets slept on a little bit. Let's see, anything else? I guess tech culture, like trying to build a lean tech culture, but also have people it's like a mindset thing, like really helping the people around you or kind of establishing the right mindset to approach building your technology. Because like I can't make, you know, all the decisions. Nobody can, and like, you know, you need a whole team of people to be making the same sorts of decisions when they're kind of when you're looking at a trade-off between security and speed of development, for instance. You want your whole team making the same sorts of trade-offs and the same sorts of decisions and having the same sorts of intuition about you know what makes sense and what doesn't. And so I'd say like that's another overlooked part of this sort of job that is really important, is like trying to establish that culture and really kind of get everyone on the same page and aligned on kind of what the right trade-offs are from a technological perspective. And yeah, I guess the DevOps stuff is also important and kind of unseen, which is just like I work with Ivaldo a lot, who's another member of our team. I feel like his job is very underappreciated, but yeah, he works really hard to make sure not only that everything kind of works and is up and running and the bots run and the relayer runs and kind of nothing gets hacked, but he's also thinking day and night about security. He lays awake at night worried about all the ways that things can go wrong. And so yeah, that part is really, really important. And kind of, I think a lot of people, when they think of running a tech organization, you don't really think of like of DevOps being a big part of that, but it's, you know, nothing else works unless you have infrastructure, unless you can actually, you know, run your code. And that's kind of what Ivaldo and a little bit me ensure.
Nice. Yeah, that's like one of our biggest partnership solicitations in server is people coming in wanting to like pick apart our security. And I always very confidently tell them that we feel quite secure in our security because we have a very hardworking team of people who take care of that for us. So yeah, I love that. I had a really good question come in. Where was that? Oh, what's your biggest technical accomplishment at Risk Labs since you've been here for 4 to 5 years? What's your prized output?
That's really hard.
What's your
There's
biggest
probably I can't give you like I can't give you one. I could probably give you two.
Okay, give me two.
I think like the initial launch of the DVM system, of like the UMA Oracle system, was just like we worked so hard to think about all the trade-offs, and we launched this system, this DVM system, the kind of voting system that we all know and love, and that lasted for, I think, you know, we modified the contracts a few times, you know, in very minor ways, but effectively that system ended up lasting for 3 years or something crazy. And in blockchain, like in crypto time, that's crazy that you would have a system that lasts that long and that kind of is useful for that period of time. So that original kind of DVM system is just a huge accomplishment. I'm super proud of that. And then I'd say across V2 is the other accomplishment I feel like incredibly proud of. I think that like the across V2 design is like beautiful. It's very complicated, but it's beautiful, and like it's flexible in all of these ways that I think a lot of other bridging protocols aren't, that allow us to kind of quickly mutate it to do what is needed. So it's just really dynamic in a way that I almost didn't even see when we originally built it. It's like it's able to be morphed into whatever is needed in the future. So like you can kind of adjust the way that balances are moved between chains, or you can adjust how it hooks into to kind of canonical bridges, or you can kind of adjust fee mechanisms pretty easily. Like there's just so much flexibility in the way the system is designed. And like obviously a lot of that depends on the fact that it's powered by the UMA optimistic oracle, which is also very, very flexible. But like, yeah, that design for Cross v2 is just incredibly powerful. And there's a reason that the kind of UBA system is really kind of across 2.5. And that's because like we're not actually moving to a v3, because this is all still the v2 design. Like even the UBA is going to be built into the v2 design. It's not going to be kind of changing the v2 design, because the v2 design just like allows us to do so much. So yeah, those two pieces of code or kind of designs are things that I'm really, really proud of. Yeah.
Is the best IRL piece of public infrastructure?
Wait, sorry, I didn't quite understand the question. Can you say that again?
Yeah. What is the best like real life piece of public infrastructure? Like what public service do you like the best in real life?
Like in real life, like in the physical world, like completely outside of crypto?
Yep.
What public service do I like? I'm a big fan of public transit. I'm like a huge public transit maxi. I mean, I don't live in a place where we have much public transit, but like I love public transit. I think it's like yeah, I am sad every day I have to get into a car because I used to live in big cities and just really liked being able to like get on a train, and it just feels like so efficient to use the same resource that everyone else is using to get around. So yeah.
Love it. Yeah, that is the answer I was trying to tease out of you. I might have asked the wrong question, but yeah, I just think that's a fun fact about Matt that everyone should know. Do you have you found a good way to like tell your friends and family outside of the crypto world what you do? Like, does anybody have the slightest idea what you do for work?
My uncle heard about he like, I don't know if he went to our website or something back like a few years ago and like saw the optimistic oracle. And so now like every time I see him at family events, he points at me and goes, optimistic oracle. And that's the only thing he knows about what we do. But no, outside of my uncle who knows what the optimistic oracle is, basically every other person just knows that I kind of work in crypto, and that like they should, if they're trying to use a new like a new crypto service, or they're worried about like they have funds on some weird exchange and they're worried about getting hacked, they like know they should ask me. But outside of like he works in crypto, like people in my family or my friends don't really know much about what I do. I would say that like I've quite a few friends in crypto, and obviously they know what I do. But yeah.
Matt, what do you say when I think your uncle points at you and says optimistic oracle?
I just kind of, I mean, with him, I just kind of laugh. We've talked about it a little bit in the past, but what I used to say back when it was, some of the stuff Uma was working on, like in the early days, was actually a lot easier to explain, where you're like building synthetic tokens. And so I would always use the example of like, we're trying to give people exposure to an asset without like, so that it's like freely tradable and kind of borderless. So like you would get an asset like the US dollar, or maybe some basket of futures or basket of securities or something, and you want to have some sort of on-chain asset that tracks those. That was like really easy for people to understand. The sort of stuff we're doing where you're like bridging between blockchains, people are like, wait, there are multiple blockchains, like what? Like people just like, it just like doesn't connect with people unless they've they've ever opened MetaMask and kind of used a blockchain directly before. So bridges are really hard to explain, and I've never had any success explaining that. The Oracle thing for UMA sometimes is explainable. I've gotten through to some people before. Like, it's very hard to verify truth, because most things on the blockchain are like kind of cryptographically provable. And so if you want things that are kind of that a human would know are true, but like the technology can't prove are true, then you need some sort of system for establishing truth. And that's kind of gotten through to a few people, but like it's very, very hard to, like, people are just like, well, why don't you just use, like, I don't know. People are just like, well, why don't you just have an authority that just tells you what the truth is? And it's like, well, then you have to kind of, then you go down you go down the path of being like, well, it's not decentralized, and like, oh, like, what happens if somebody bribes that person? And like, it just becomes this kind of mess of like this sort of blockchain. Then it becomes like a mess of like the blockchain values don't align with like the kind of real world people who have a legal system and government values. And so it's kind of hard to translate those kind of the concepts that everybody kind of knows and relies on in their real life into the kind of blockchain world where kind of there are no rules. So it's the Oracle concept though does kind of sometimes make sense to people.
Where you don't say that you work in crypto because you just don't want to open that can of worms? Like, what's your backup answer when people say, what do you do?
Yeah. If I don't know somebody very well, I normally just say I work in like technology, or I like write software or something. And they just kind of like, most people, when you say that, will be like, oh yeah, I don't care about that, and like kind of nod and don't ask you any more questions.
Okay, cool. Yeah, that's a good default. I haven't quite figured out my backup answer or my like default I work in crypto answer, because I don't know. Nobody knows what community management is outside of crypto. They're like, oh, so you work for an HOA? No, I don't.
You should be like kind of like a little like basically an HOA, right?
Yeah. No, I just hang out with people online all day. Okay, cool. Nice. I love it. So let's actually, before we dive back into crypto again, what's one of your hobbies or passion projects outside of crypto, outside of the tech space?
Passion, like things that I like projects. I
or just like
at least like recently. Oh, what do I enjoy doing? Well, I mean, I really like music a lot. It's always been kind of a long-standing hobby of mine. So I'm super into just I was actually talking to Christian, who's another member of our team, the other day, and he's also really into music. I just like kind of going down the rabbit hole of musicians and artists, especially old stuff. And yeah, so I'm just like, that's kind of I'd say like one of my bigger hobbies for most of my life. And then just to answer your former question on like projects, I really like kind of, I don't know, a lot of people in tech like to do like home labs and stuff like that. So I like building computers and having kind of a set of computers at home that I can like kind of play around with different types of software, different open source projects and stuff like that. So that's kind of another, I guess, hobby or kind of side project of mine. Not to like make money or to like, not trying to start kind of an anon project or anything like that. More like just to like kind of set up a VPN to see how hard that would be, or set up like I don't know, set up a home validator node, or like try to run my own nodes and see if I can connect to them from from my phone or something. I don't know, weird stuff like that.
Nice. So do you have your own like home computer lab then, where when you're done working, you like get off your work computer and go play with your toy computers?
Yeah, exactly. It's actually being in crypto kind of sucks though, because like most software is really, you can buy pretty cheap hardware. Like you can run a lot of software on like a Raspberry Pi or something, just really cheap hardware. But to run like a Geth node, or like to run nodes for crypto, you need like crazy hardware requirements. And so if you want to run like if I wanted to run like an Ethereum node, an Arbitrum node, Polygon node and an Optimism node, I'd have to like have almost 4 separate computers or just like a massive server. So if you want to start doing your home lab in crypto, the costs kind of go up exponentially from doing almost anything else. As I know Dylan and Chase both know.
Nice. Okay, quick back step to music. What's your current favorite song?
Oh, song.
Or artist. Or artist.
Yeah,
if you don't know song.
No, song is fine. I really like this. I mean, this is like a really weird song to pick, but it's just the first one that popped in my head. I really like this song called Motion Picture Soundtrack by Radiohead. That's like one of my all-time favorite songs. It's a little bit weird, but yeah, I really like that song. Yeah,
Perfect.
I don't know.
There's no wrong answer. Love it. Are you a Swiftie?
So my wife Abby is a Swiftie, so kind of by association I am. And I like Taylor Swift. There's like an album or two I definitely think are really good. I'm not as into it as Abby is, but I'm, she's good. I know Chase is a big Swiftie, so he's probably the right. He can probably make a better representation here than I can.
My answer too. Like, I do love some Taylor Swift, but I don't feel like I've earned the title of Swiftie necessarily. Okay, let's dive back into crypto.
Do you have to have gone to a? Did you have to go to a concert, like pay $1,000 to go to a Taylor Swift concert to be considered a Swiftie now? Is that the bar?
I don't think so. I mean, I think everybody's bar can be self-defined. I think because that's just are you wealthy or not, right? Like
fair.
Be a non-wealthy Swiftie, I think.
Depends on percentage of income. Yeah. Fair enough.
Nice. Okay, did Britt just ask Matt if he's an alcoholic? No, I did not. Okay, back into crypto. So let's talk about like the interop space real quick. And with the recent announcement of Uniswap X, what in the like future of the bridge space is most exciting to you?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the bridge space is like really immature, I think. So you have a lot of different solutions in bridging, and I feel like we haven't yet converged on like what is the, obviously I think the across design is great, and it is the most capital efficient bridge out there. I'm a big believer in it, but I think the space as a whole has not really converged on what kind of bridge architecture makes the most sense. And so I think Uniswap X is kind of jumping into the field, making an argument that the sort of market maker approach is the best one. I don't know if people remember like the first version of Connext, but what Uniswap X is doing is actually, I think, very similar to the first version of Connext, where you basically need a person to like, you basically need somebody on the other side who's willing to swap tokens with you. So if I want to send my USDC to Arbitrum, then I need somebody who's going to give me the USDC on Arbitrum and take my USDC on the other side. Across does not work that way. Across kind of has this liquidity pool architecture. So Uniswap X is making an argument that you just let these kind of sophisticated market makers kind of manage all of this volume kind of just through their own kind of private capital. I'm not totally sold that makes sense. I think that you need passive liquidity to be able to facilitate the amount of volume that flows through bridges every day. But who knows? So like there's a lot of designs, or there's kind of a lot of kind of eventualities that are possible here. One is that like Uniswap X, that most bridge volume flows through these sorts of Uniswap X style market makers. And then the market makers are kind of on the back end, kind of shoveling that volume through kind of liquidity based bridges like across. But there's like lots of other possible systems too. I'm not totally sure where we're going to land. And I think it really depends on kind of how much directional flow there is through bridges, and then how much capital these market makers can kind of amass to support that amount of bridge volume. And also what level of, what amount of fees users are going to be willing to pay. Because a market maker is only going to show up with $100 million of capital if they can get a pretty good return on holding that capital, waiting on a user to kind of send a bridge transaction. If the users aren't willing to pay very high fees, then the market makers are not going to show up. So yeah, I think Uniswap X will actually, a big brand like Uniswap pushing a design out like this, I think will reveal a lot about the bridge space, right? It'll answer a lot of my questions at least, because I'm very curious how these market makers are going to really respond, and how low of fees they're going to be willing to take to perform the service.
Cool experiment for sure. I think, and in the crypto space too, I think like we'll have an answer much faster than we might in other spaces. So that'll be interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Next question. So we've had like a couple of trends. I don't know if I want to call them trends or like just buzzwords, right? So at first it was account abstraction, and then it was intents, and now we seem to have this kind of wave of like new attempts at token standards. What are your thoughts on all of that as it relates to bridging?
Yeah. So the first one is, what was the first one you mentioned actually? You mentioned
Account abstraction.
intents. What else? Account abstraction.
Yeah, account abstraction, intents, and these like new token standards like the layer 01 or Stargate or whoever.
Yeah, account abstraction and intents I'd kind of put all in the bucket of like how to make I guess I'm just like thinking about like the user experience in a multi-blockchain world. I think that intents so on account abstraction, like account abstraction is great. I don't think it's picked up all that much. But I think it is like I think it's a really important and necessary component of like of a user experience that like a billion users would be okay with, and not just like the million users that are currently using crypto platforms. So I think account abstraction is like kind of like I'd put it in the category of necessary but not sufficient condition to get way more users in crypto. I think a lot of existing crypto users like aren't using account abstraction today just because like it's expensive to deploy the contract and people already have gas. They already have their kind of gas funds. So I think it's gonna take some time for that really to heat up, but I do think it's gonna be an important part of crypto in the long term. And I think like it's unclear to me though whether it's gonna be done through smart contracts or whether it's gonna be done in the kind of ZK sync way where account abstraction is built into the blockchain itself. On intents, I'd kind of put it in the same category of like an attempt at improving the UX for users on kind of to enable the next billion users to enter crypto, or the first billion users to enter crypto. This is intents. I feel like though are really ill defined, and I feel like intents is actually maybe a bad name for what's really just like application specific order flow auctions at this point. So like the way intents work is like you're basically allowing the user to say, I would like this outcome from the transaction, and instead of specifying what the inputs are going to be to the transaction. And so that's just really hard for a lot of reasons. It's hard to protect the user from like hacks or other. It's hard to make sure that the user doesn't accidentally specify some output of the transaction that will like really, that could steal all their money or do something that they didn't anticipate that would really be bad. for them. So I think intents are really kind of not a real thing, or not even close to being reality. I think really what people should be talking about are kind of these sorts of application specific order flow auctions, which is basically what Uniswap X is. And that does have a lot of real viability, where you run an auction to see who can give a user the best price for a transaction. And the last thing you mentioned, what was the last trend?
The new token standards, like the OFT token standard.
Right. Yeah, I mean, I think these are interesting. I'm like, personally, I think that like this is putting a little bit of maybe the cart before the horse. I think the big challenge with these token standards is that they are fundamentally mint burn. They are kind of, or I guess lock and mint style bridging tokens. So this means that like you need some perfectly secure way to communicate that this token was locked on this chain so that you can mint it on another chain. If that communication mechanism breaks, then then somebody can infinite mint the tokens, and you're done. So I think that what's frustrating about kind of people talking a lot about the standards is that I don't hear as much discussion of like, how are you going to make these things secure? How are you going to actually operate either an OFT token or there's another standard, I forget the name of it, but like, how are you going to actually communicate those messages across chains and make sure that somebody doesn't kind of infinite mint the token? And so like, once again, I'm not to directly, I don't want to be too hard on layer 0 here, but I think layer 0 kind of wants to put these standards out as a way to kind of brush under the rug the fact that they haven't actually developed a very secure way of moving the messages across chains to actually mint and burn the tokens. So if it were me, I wouldn't trust an OFT if it were run by kind of layer 0's default messaging system, just because layer 0's default messaging system is effectively a multisig. So until there's a better system for verifying messages that go across chains, then I think, I don't think these sorts of standards make sense. Now, there are really good messaging platforms for particular chains. So like going from mainnet to Arbitrum, there's a really good messaging bridge because it's made by Arbitrum. It's part of the Arbitrum consensus. I think there are also great ones like Succinct out there that have gone through multiple audits and are use zero knowledge proofs to actually prove consensus on the source chain. Those are really good mechanisms, and I think those make a lot of sense, and I'm really excited about them. But until you have messaging systems like that can go everywhere, I don't think we're at the point where we can start thinking about building OFTs or making tokens that can be locked and minted everywhere, and kind of building this into all the tokens we use. I just don't think it makes sense. So yeah, those are kind of my hot takes.
Nice. Love it. I think that is a perfect wrap for this. So thank you, Matt, for joining us today and answering all of our questions about crypto and otherwise. It was fun to interview you. These are always fun to learn a bit about our team. And you are one of our MVPs. So huge thanks for joining us today.
Yeah, thank you all for having me. I enjoyed it.
And with that, typically I would have Amanda spin the wheel, and I actually do not know how to do that. So Clayton, if you're listening out there and have the ability to spin the wheel, I will ask you to do that. Otherwise, we might just double up on our prize for next week's community call. And with that, I will go ahead and summon our music bot and send you all off with a fun tune for today. As always, thank you everyone for joining. Thanks for the rest of the Across team who has since moved on to other meetings. thank Styx for hanging around this whole time, and everyone have a good rest of your week. Cheers, guys.